That was kind of little. See them outside.
Give it a couple minutes for members of the public to join, or seconds. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alani Kioki, and I'm the Executive Director of the board. Welcome to the Hawaii Retirement Savings Board's April 15th, 2025 board meeting. Before the meeting is called to order, the chairperson will explain the procedures to participate in this hybrid board meeting, including how members of the public can participate and interact with the board during the meeting.
Okay, good afternoon, Bill Gutzman, chairperson of this meeting. Internet access. To view the meeting and provide live oral testimony, please use the link at the top of the agenda. You'll be asked to enter your name. The board requests that you enter your full name, but you may use a pseudonym or other identifier if you wish to remain anonymous. You'll also be asked for an email address. You may fill in this field with any entry in an email format, for example, etc@mail.com. Your microphone will be automatically muted and video will be turned off. When the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may click the raise hand button found on your Zoom screen to indicate that you wish to testify about an agenda item. You will individually be enabled to unmute your microphone, turn on your video if you choose to, and testify. When recognized by the chairperson, please unmute your microphone and turn on your video if you choose to before speaking, and mute your microphone and turn off your video after you finish speaking. For those of you with phone access, if you cannot get internet access, you may get audio only access by calling the Zoom phone number listed at the top of the agenda. Upon dialing the number, you'll be prompted to enter the meeting ID, which is also listed at the top of the agenda. After entering the meeting ID, you will be asked to wait to be admitted into the meeting. When the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may indicate you want to testify by entering star and then 9 on your phone's keypad. After entering star and then 9, a voice prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. When recognized by the chairperson, you may unmute yourself by pressing star and then 6 on your phone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. Once you are finished speaking, please enter star and then 6 again to mute yourself. For both internet and phone access, when testifying, you'll be asked to identify yourself and the organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 5 minutes of testimony per agenda item. Pursuant to Act 12, Session Laws of Hawaii 2024, the board may remove or block any person who willfully disrupts or compromises the conduct of the meeting. If connection to the meeting is lost for more than 30 minutes, the meeting will be continued at a specified date and time. The information will be provided on the board's website at labor.hawaii.gov/HRSP/board meetings/. Instructions to attend State of Hawaii virtual board meetings may be found online at labor.hawaii.gov. Okay. And now I'll go ahead and do a roll call of the members. Co-chair Louis Salaveria, I believe, is not with us today. I am William Kuntzman. I'm here today. Keola Dean.
Present. Here.
Excellent. Barbara Krieg.
Here.
Andrew Nomura.
Here.
Brian Taniguchi.
Here.
Karen Yasukawa.
Here.
And do I have and Representative Andrew Garrett? I believe he is not present. And the same for Senator Henry Aquino. Not present. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is now 1:05 p.m. Our first agenda item is approval of the minutes, March the 18th, 2025 open session meetings. Do I have any members from the public who would like to provide testimony on this agenda item? I do not see any. And do we have anybody on the board who would like if they have any amendments to the minutes. Okay, I do not see any. Then, if there are no amendments and we're ready to vote, I'll need a motion to approve the minutes as. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Do I have unanimous consent?
I'm not supposed to vote,
Anyone who would like to abstain or recuse themselves.
right?
Very good. Okay, thank you, everyone.
So roll call will need to be made, since it's not unanimous.
Okay, so going back to, well, I guess with who's present, so Brian Taniguchi.
Aye.
Barbara Krieg. I myself vote aye. Keola Dean.
Aye.
Karen Yasukawa.
Aye.
Okay, motion is carried. Our next agenda item is the 2025 legislative session. Legislation, numeral A or letter A. Senate Bill 855, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 1, relating to Hawaii Retirement Savings Act. This measure clarifies the definition of covered employer under the Hawaii Retirement Savings Act. Requires covered employers to enroll covered employees into the Hawaii Retirement Savings Program unless the employee opts out. Repeals the limit on the total fees and expenses that can be spent for the program each year. Appropriates funds to the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations for the development and operation of the program. Currently, the measure is effective July the 1st, 3,000. Do I have any members of the public who are interested in providing testimony on this agenda item? I do not see any. Do I have any comments from the board about this?
Do we have any word on, I think the House appointed conferees? I'm not sure. I'm not sure
Yeah,
if the Senate,
As of this morning, no conferees for the Senate have been appointed, but the House conferees are Suyama, Lee, co-chairs, Reyes-Oda, member.
yeah, and out of all the bills the department's tracking, we haven't seen any, except for the budget bill, we haven't seen any Senate conferees yet, so. It appears that the House is naming conferees more quickly than the Senate this go round. So,
should be the sweep.
No, we didn't.
Is it correct that the only difference, the discussion point is the effective date?
That is correct. So the appropriation is still blinked out. However, it's in the budget as well as the governor's message. Yeah, so it's substantively, there's no substantive differences, just the effective date of the bill.
You know, and relatedly on the budget, the House and the Senate agreed with the same numbers was in the governor's message, except for I think we worked with both sides to beat the
Ongoing costs.
ongoing costs, yeah. So it's basically what the board and the department asked for, both sides agreed. The only remaining item, I think, for this session, well, there's another small little problem with the budget. They did not agree on, the Senate did not agree to the increase in the salary for the executive director. But outside of that minor matter.
So it's very nice working with you.
So kind of assuming that it's just something that there's a difference between the chambers on it, whether or not there's a substantive objection to it or not. We don't believe so, but other than that, the bill, yeah, it doesn't have an effective date,
A clean effective date.
a clean effective date, right? that's kind of where we're at with legislation so far this year. I don't know if there's anything else.
So again, the last action taken on this bill was the appointment of the House committees, which the Senate received today.
And do our remote board members have any questions or comments for us on this agenda item? I'll make sure. No?
No.
Okay. Okay. Excuse me.
Just one thing,
Yeah,
did we send something to the conference chairs?
So
Just a,
letter,
just a one page, one paragraph.
I sent a letter last week Friday on behalf of the board to Senator Sayama, Representative Sayama and Senator Aquino. And then,
the department, we sent one yesterday
Okay,
to the same two chairs.
that's great.
Okay. Okay, moving on then to the next agenda item, the Hawaii Retirement Savings Program implementation, moving forward, priorities and opportunities, and in your board packet, there is a handout entitled HRSP Hawaii Retirement Savings Board, moving forward, priorities and opportunities. And I will turn it over to our executive director to go into detail on this document.
so as I indicated, this is a draft document for the board to consider. It was drafted by Christina and myself. I made some changes to it, but I think there are several things that the board needs to focus on in the coming months. One of which is communication and its engagement, how the board is going to communicate with the public, organizations, employment and employees and employers, the financial situation of the program, as well as pre-implementation information gathering. So if we can start off with each of those bulleted points, first with communication and engagement. There are several things that the board needs to consider and decide upon at future board meetings. I've provided some of the information in your packet just as examples for you to look at and possibly provide clearer direction from me based on what occurs after the legislative session. Knowing whether, one, we get the appropriation, and two, if the program is actually going to be an opt-out versus an opt-in program. Once we receive clear direction and the legislative session ends, I think you guys can make final or formal decisions and I can move forward on behalf of the board. So communication and engagement. So number one, awareness, the awareness phase. You need to come up with actionable items for me to proceed. These are some of the things that board members can consider. The program landing page, whether we want to change that, in any way, shape, or form, create some form of a listserv in addition to that. Messaging, who you want these messages to go out to. You know they need to go out to agencies, employment agencies, as well as community organizations. People need to understand what the program is, who it'll benefit, and that really there are truly no huge ongoing costs for employers. There will be some startup costs and they need to be made those startup costs need to be clear to them. Create and develop relationships. Who specifically would you like me to develop relationships with? There are organizations listed on this draft document that I can begin to reach out to. And I think this is a good starting point for you to consider. The mission of the board. So we discussed somewhat at last board meeting what the mission or the functional statement is of the board and the program. So using that as your base, you can expand on that, and that can be your mission statement. These mission statements could also go out and be provided to other state agencies, private organizations. I did provide information in your board meeting packet from the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs registration division. So their division within DCCA's has a securities branch that provides educational programs to the public. So both consumers as well as organizations, we can latch onto that so that we're not recreating the wheel and provide information to the consumers of the state. The importance of this program, again, who it will benefit and how it will benefit the state in the long run. And marketing. So we don't have to delve deeply into this yet, but part of the request for your funding is both the startup costs for marketing as well as ongoing. We do need funding to market this program. I, on your behalf, can do so much, but really, it needs to be marketed like similar programs within the department. Workforce development, they have great marketing, and people are aware of their programs because of marketing.
Just the marketing for the other DLIR programs.
They have to do that.
I mean, is that something that's procured?
So. Yes, it is something that's procured. The Department of Labor and Industrial Relations does not do much. Through marketing, IOSH, Occupational Safety and Health Division, does regularly like place ads in the paper and in certain magazines or whatever. Otherwise, the only other one that has in recent memory is the Workforce Development Division. I don't know if you've seen those commercials about the internship program, but so our department really doesn't really normally do a lot of marketing, so to speak.
Outsourcing.
Yeah, outsourcing,
Yeah,
but you need funding too.
I guess I was wondering, rather than maybe internal PLIR, are we looking toward the other programs in other states and taking maybe a survey of what they did on these particular issues? And maybe even the University of Maryland, where they have that think tank thing for these kinds of programs, retirement savings programs, that we can maybe inquire with them about things or where to look.
So we do have Georgetown,
Question, but
yeah, on the call right now, but they do also, for other jurisdictions, provide very good resources for me to look at. So I was looking at California's program specifically, but we also have to remember that these jurisdictions receive millions of dollars to start up their programs. Quite a few of the programs also they didn't receive a loan from the state. So they receive the funding to start up their program for ongoing costs, but they don't have to pay the state back. So I thought California's program was pretty good, the resources provided on Georgetown's website. But it was very clear, be straight to the point, provide the benefits, answer some of those FAQs too. But there are resources to your question out there.
Just have two more questions on what we've covered so far. When you refer to startup costs to the employers who have to participate, what are you referring to?
Like your line item deductions or payroll
Right,
deductions.
yeah.
So those things, it's not going to necessarily be free to them. They'll either have to do it in-house or hire someone to do payroll deductions for them.
Because we had discussion about that in the past
Mhm.
when, or maybe it was even before the bill was passed, and the input that we got from the staffing agencies, as an example, is, well, it's just another deduction. So no, I mean, for some companies, there is no additional fee, even to do one additional deduction. In other words, they're already having to do deductions, whether in-house or through an outside company. So I just
They've got to add a line item.
Yeah, right, and that's it. So I, want to be sure when we get to that point that the understanding is we're not talking prohibitive investment,
No.
I think, on anybody's part.
I think, and Audrey and Kaylee are in attendance at this meeting, but I think they had testified that it may be the state of Oregon. It was, hey Kaylee. Hi.
The
Go ahead.
state of Oregon indicated that a majority, they had done a survey of the participants' businesses. And they had indicated most of the businesses had not, in fact, incurred additional cost. And of those that did incur a cost, it was about $50 a month.
Relatively low. Thank you.
And then my other question is when you talk about, as you appropriately said, you know, we have to talk about actionable items for the board to set for you. I know I'm sort of looking to our board training to get more concrete guidance on that. Have you had any discussions with Lisa or anybody more about how a board training could work?
So we were planning for June. So what I wanted to
great.
do was not only have Pew as you had suggested, but also Georgetown. Because Georgetown appears to be the repository for all of that information, whether it's contracts, marketing documents, you know, that type of stuff. So I would think it's best if you have both organizations, maybe not at the same meetings, but at various different meetings.
That'd be terrific, thank you.
Your questions? So that's communication and engagement. Financials. So as a bulleted point, we have a program break-even analysis and the consideration if the board is inclined to refresh the data. So in your board meeting packet, I had provided the December 2021 task force report, which was provided to the legislature in 2022. So if you refer to page 24 of that report, kind of the first full paragraph in the middle of the page, the report indicates, or Pew forecasted, that the Hawaii program would become cash flow positive in 7 years and become net positive in year 11. But again, this report was drafted in 2021. On page 25 of the same report, under feasibility of an auto IRA program for Hawaii, he forecasted that, or considered an analysis which indicates that a program for Hawaii's forecasts would generate approximately 80,000 in new funded retirement accounts for the state over the next 10 years. Those accounts will have an estimated aggregate value of $828 million. And by year 10, average account balances are expected to be $10,300. So again, this information is from 2021. Would the board consider requesting via Pew that the information be refreshed so that you have more updated numbers and you can work off of that? Okay, so I can make that request.
And is that something that Pew is willing to do out of the goodness of their heart?
I will make the request. Mhm. And the rest they can say is no.
Right, right.
Didn't I'm just recalling, I thought the big part of the question marks on the original study was one, whether or not you go alone or with another. And it seemed like that was a big sort of big why in the junction that we gotta decide, you know, which way we're gonna go, and those determine your financials.
So I think there are two factors that this report considered. It was, or they assumed, that the program would be an opt-out. And two, that things could happen quicker for the board or the program if we entered into some form of a compact. So it is extremely important that this legislation passes out. I know we've been focusing on the appropriation and the money provided to the program. However, the program cannot be successful unless it becomes an opt-out program.
I guess I'm assuming all the signs are that it's gonna pass, right?
You never know.
Is that
We got that last
We
year.
got this far last year,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
even without appropriations, and then it just, nothing happened in Congress.
Oh,
So it didn't even, I mean, it made it to conference, but conferees were not named.
okay.
So, yeah. So we're really hoping for, Kayla, I'm sorry.
That's okay. First of all, it's exciting to get to this point. I think we've been in stasis for so long. This feels all new again. I completely agree that I think we do need an updated report from Pew, in part because when you look through the implementation plan in that report, starting or on page 30, there are a lot of steps that need to be taken, and a number of them are procurement steps, and I think we need data in order to then develop adequate RFPs for the procurement process. So I'm fully on board with that. And just wondering, I guess my question is, what could we take that implementation table that is on page 30 and then start turning that into an implementation plan? And I know it's very early. We still don't even have the bill passed yet, which this is all predicated upon. But just looking toward the future, and as a board member, what I would probably want to start seeing in, assuming the bill passes in the next like 3 to 6 months.
So from my perspective, that would be great, because at a prior board meeting, you also asked me for a plan going forward. So thank you, Kayla, for referencing this document, because these are good steps. Year 1 of the program, year 2 of the program, year 3 of the program, and so forth. Again, we make the decision
Next time.
next time.
I think generally speaking, it's a good plan. I think though that we probably have to get you to determine what it'd be like if we had a standalone, if we did this, just did the voice. And then from that, based on what comes out of that, I think we gotta make an analysis on whether it's good to, join some other state or form some sort of other agreement. And then decide on that and then proceed with this page 30 stuff. But I think I think it's very serious that we gotta look at sort of maybe joining some other states or state. But I'd like to see an analysis of just Hawaii, because you have a certain amount of control and stuff too, right?
Mhm.
If it's just a Hawaii state program as opposed to a kind of joint program.
So it might be interesting to find out if any of the compact states had also looked into doing their own program. Because my understanding is from somewhere along the line, there was a determination, or it was demonstrated that for the smaller states, basically nobody was interested in bidding on the programs, right? They weren't interested in running programs that small. And that may be the answer itself.
Question.
Not much. I apologize. Both my pens are not working. Discussion. So just to be clear, I will reach out to Pew to determine whether they can provide us clear or updated numbers, about the program's break even, as well as what Brian and Barbara just discussed. Correct?
Can they provide, are they the group, or is it the other group that provides a sort of a national landscape?
Like Georgia.
Is that Georgetown? Is it Georgetown? Can Georgetown do it independently of you?
Angela is attending the meeting. Angela, would you be able to answer that question?
I don't want to speak unless spoken to, but I'm happy to answer any questions you all have on any of these topics. But yes, for sure, I'd be more than happy to do a landscape overview or any of a number of these topics that you all have touched on. Happy to help.
I think that would be helpful. I mean, regardless of what happens internally, to get an update on where we are nationally as far as the other plans and how they're proceeding.
Happy to, again, partnership questions, how that's evolved over time, what that looks
Yeah.
like, Colorado partnership versus Connecticut and Rhode Island, which have a separate partnership. The processes that different states have gone through and why they went through the steps that they did to make a decision to either enter a partnership, or we have Minnesota as an example right now that has an RFP out for a program administrator, but also an RFP out to the states for potential partners. So they've two-tracked it to look at both options.
But we also, you said Minnesota, correct?
Yes, Minnesota is currently doing that.
They also
Nevada,
received.
I'm sorry, Nevada as another example, was also considering double tracking it, but ultimately the board made a decision to enter a partnership, and so it has entered the Colorado. So Nevada and Minnesota and Rhode Island are sort of the newer states, and Rhode Island chose to enter the partnership with Connecticut. But Minnesota did make the decision to go ahead and explore both options at the same time.
And Minnesota just, they have a budget of about $5 million.
That's correct.
But we are grateful for whatever we receive.
So I think that would be helpful to understand. That's gonna be different than what we have.
So as part of the financials, I also provided the program's budget. And the remaining appropriation. So the remaining appropriation, which will lapse on June 30th of this year, is $247,070.87. And we covered some of the discussion in the pre-implementation information gathering, so data collection. Whether the program will enter into partnerships or create an RFP to do it by themselves. But a suggestion was made by Lisa also for board members and staff to go to other states' program websites and see how far you can get through the process signing up for their programs. I tried Oregon Saves. That was a very easy process for me. I stopped at the point in time where I would actually open an account and invest myself there. But it took like 5 minutes.
So you're saying the process that an employee would go through?
An employee, yeah. Because I think we need to also, and it's very important that we consider their process, not just the employer, but the employee, how user-friendly we can make a system for them. Make sure that the language on any of the websites are in lay terms, not something that the members understand or vendors.
Kaylee had her hand raised.
I apologize, Kaylee.
That's okay. I took my hand down because it's been covered. Thank you so much.
So when you talk about data collection, are you talking about identifying which employers are in the must be in the program?
So it's everything. It's what employers must be in the program. It's collection of information to create RFPs. It's how we're going to move forward with even your marketing. So this pre-implementation information gathering are all kind of connected.
So I recall we had discussions over time in our earlier meetings, obviously long before you as to whether or not there were, I mean, each state has obviously certain systems that would have a lot of that information, but it's a matter of trying to figure out which systems, whether we need MOUs to access the systems. I know DLIR, for example, you must have, systems that have workers' comp, as an example, must have all employer information in theirs. Are we talking about like building on those and having an outside company come in and identify and work with existing data? Is that the likely process?
Well, I was thinking I could probably draft some form of an MOU to collect information from other divisions regarding employees and employers.
Departments, not just DLIR.
So
If that's what it is.
an MOU, for instance, if we worked with DCCA, an MOU would have to be created.
So internally, there would need to be an MOU too, and out of all of the programs, it's probably would be unemployment insurance, depending on what information you're seeking, but there's federal law and Code of Federal Regulations that addresses the ability for the department to share that information, so it needs to follow certain it needs to comply with what is allowable, and it also needs to be paid for by the program requesting the information, because it cannot be paid for out of the administration funds that we get from the federal government for it. So yeah, that requires an MOU, another agency.
If I'm recalling correctly, and again, this goes back a couple of years, so maybe not. We also need to identify not just who the employers are, but which ones do and do not have already, a 401k or anything of that sort. Isn't there some referencing that's done? Is it with the Department of Taxation on tax returns, or is there some other system? Because that's the other big piece from what I recall. It's not just, you don't contact everybody necessarily and say, do you have an existing program? It may come to that, but there's a way, I think other states had found ways to cross-reference different systems to come up with the shorter list of potentially these are the employers who don't already offer their own program. Does that sound familiar at all?
Well, I know the information that is gathered by this department is rather limited and probably doesn't capture some of that information
Right.
you're talking about. So I would think that the program would need to do agreements with other entities in the state. I would
But this is where,
assume-
like in other
No
states,
tax.
obviously, everybody has the same issue questions. But probably if you reach out, you can find out, or maybe even Georgetown can help us. There she goes, yeah.
Angela?
Hi, I can send in your inbox a summary of how every state gets its data for employers and the agreements.
That
they have
would be
in
great.
place. So
Thank
after
you.
another state asked, and so we compiled it for them. So this is very timely conversation, and happy to send that with you. But it's been an evolutionary process where they've started, it might be the Department of Revenue or the Department of Labor, and then they continue to look at other agencies and what they have available. And then they start refining that process and building out some other interagency agreements to get additional information.
Yeah. Right. And then as part of the draft as well, it's some of the employer organizations that the board or the program can reach out to with regard to this program. Provide information, answer any questions. What should be added to this list is the Hawaii Chamber of Commerce as well.
Thank you. So just had a couple of ideas on that to consider. Something in the healthcare organization, Hawaii Healthcare Association probably, but I was thinking more in terms of care homes are very likely to not have existing programs and tend to be small and have only a few employees. The state bar, again, there are lots of small law firms I know for a fact don't offer the benefit and want to, but also the lawyers themselves can be a, disseminator of information to their clients and others. And then I'm aware that there are many, many small employers that are dentists.
Hawaii Dental Association.
Yeah, but also that made me think, is there some sort of global way to disseminate information through all of the licensing process, something there?
As the former licensing administrator.
Exactly, if anybody knows.
Sure.
But
I'm speaking on her behalf.
You don't have to figure out how to do it, you just have to know to request it.
Yeah.
Yes. There are
That's a great.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is there any comments from the board?
Just wanted to piggyback on the last comment, some other organizations that we should consider reaching out to are payroll service providers and or professional employer organizations. Some of the large PEOs do offer 401k, but it's typically an option for their clients. And so, these are the organizations that are going to help the employers process those deductions.
Any other comments or suggestions from the board? And do we have anybody from the public who would like to provide testimony on this agenda item pertaining to the moving forward document priorities and opportunities? I do not see any. Oh, Kaylee Lopez.
Sorry, just quick one. Wanted to just reinforce, I know you were talking about the work moving forward with Pew and Georgetown's assistance. Did want to also let you know that ARP is very much willing to provide support where we can. One of the things that we're looking at during this summer and we'll be coordinating with Alani is an opportunity for a Pauhana with small businesses to again begin introducing them to retirement savings, but having them meet her as well. And, please know that you can count on ARP where we can to provide some assistance as well in making people more aware of the program's availability. So thank you.
As a follow-up to that, I have a question for Michael, please. So whether it's AARP or whether it's another one of these, organizations, associations having an event, what can we as board members do if asked to do presentations? I mean, I get it that, Alani can do whatever is requested that she's amenable to doing, but are we permitted to speak as representatives of the program?
Yeah, I think so. As long as the board makes the decision and decides on what the message is gonna be, I think any one of the board members can also go out and do presentations. You're talking about talking to the public and so.
Yes, yeah.
I think that's fine as long as the board makes a decision on the message and approves the idea.
So maybe at the June meeting, we can decide on who that member will be.
Or why couldn't it be
members.
all of us as, available, willing, appropriate, whatever that may be?
So as long as at whatever presentation, there are no more than 2 board members at a time, right?
Check, yeah, because if you're making a public presentation, I don't know if that would you just disseminating, if you're
educational.
just disseminating information. So I'll check.
As long as decisions are being made.
Right,
those
yeah,
types of
right.
things. Okay.
And the decision on what the message is made prior. So it's approved as to what the board members will be saying.
So in Kaylee's example, or what Kaylee said where they're anticipating having a Pauhana event, my understanding, I could be wrong, is we could attend, but either we pay for any, food, drink, or we just don't partake. We can, as long as there's no sort of gratuity involved. But could more than two of us be there and be available as sort of roving resources if asked?
Yeah, my guess is I think so, but I'll check because you're not
Okay,
making decisions, you're not discussing issues before the board in which decisions have to be made, you just disseminate
Right.
information and a message that's been pre-approved by the board, right? I think it's okay, but I'll check.
so just make sure that we have all the nuances.
Any further discussion by the board?
I'd like to say something.
Please, go ahead, Karen.
Okay, I had the opportunity to listen on March 24th to a webinar put on by Georgetown University. And it was at their Center for Retirement Initiatives, and it was extremely helpful because they discussed the state-by-state analysis, and they had a newsletter there. So if any of the board members have any time, going to that particular site, they keep the replays and everything. It was excellent, and it brought me up to date at where the other states stood. It was very, very well done and a lot of good information for us. So I just think that that might be something as board members we might just want to check out.
Sorry, which
I-
date was that meeting?
The date was on March 27th, and I did send the information to Alani.
Thank you.
So I know that Bill and I have access to certain things on the website. I can try to get the other board
I think we
members
do.
to all.
I think it was set up a while ago. I
Okay.
assume it's still active.
I don't recollect.
Now a few former, oh, Angela.
Hi, guys. So we had the webinar on March 25th. It's all publicly on our site. So cri.georgetown.edu, there's a webinar tab. You can go to past webinars, but because I know people can't necessarily sit in front of their computer to watch a webinar, we also did the audio only, which we just released as a podcast. So if you want to walk and put it in, or you're on a plane and you want to listen to the webinar, you can do that too and download the podcast, which is the State of Retirement podcast that you can get on Apple's, iTunes, Spotify. So we wanted to make it as accessible in as many different ways for you to be able to listen to it easily.
I listened to it on my way in.
And thank you, Karen, for the kind words about the podcast and the webinar.
It was excellent, absolutely excellent.
Is there anybody else, board member or public who would like to comment further before we move on away from this agenda item? Seeing none, the next agenda item 5 is the executive director's report, including the 2025 financial disclosure statements.
Yep, so just a friendly reminder that each of the board members have to file their financial statements no later than June 2nd, 2025. So I'm putting it on this agenda because our next meeting is on June 17th. I will also send out reminders in May for you all, and then the beginning, well, several reminders in May for you all.
Me too.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
But yes.
Any comments or questions, board members? Anybody from the public wishing to provide testimony on this agenda item? Do not see any, so our next agenda item is our next meeting, which is going to be on June the 17th, 2025. It will be similar to this meeting, virtual video conference meeting, Zoom meeting, and in person, a hybrid meeting. In person, in this room on June the 17th. Okay,
Don't have a meeting.
Now,
okay.
adjourn. So you can adjourn the meeting, no motions needed.
Okay, I'll adjourn the meeting then.
It's 1:51 p.m. Thank you.
Good.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Old school. So Lonnie is the